today I'll be talking about child protection in online, offline environment and the impact of digital technologies on child protection issues and overall child rights. I mean, the main topics covered in this brief presentation will be children in digital world, what are the benefits and what are the gaps in the system, and then what is the harm of digital world on child protection or overall child well-being, and then links between online and offline environment and the possible abuse cases and how to really ensure child protection in the online and offline world. I'm sure that you will all agree that in current world we cannot imagine life of children without internet connection, without access to digital technologies, access to information technologies. Since the discovery of internet, it became a part of our overall life. Though when the internet was introduced, no one thought of children maybe at that stage. But for the time being, majority of children globally are using internet for good and for bad. So today I'll be talking more about this. And what is important that overall connectivity has a critical role in child education, development, and protection. And more children at different age are using internet for accessing education, and the current lockdown in many countries due to COVID-19 also showed that very often children have to refer to digital technologies to ensure their access to education, to ensure their access to information, to communicate with their peers, etc. And connectivity is a serious issue nowadays globally, and we still have a large number of children that are out of connection, and that's another issue that we are going to talk today. And also what is really important is that digital technology can also make children more prone to different harms and to different damage and to different protection challenges, and already vulnerable children can really face serious issues related to online protection. Looking into the global statistics, one can find that today around 15 to children from 15 to 24 are the main users of online environment, and they are the ones more connected than anyone else. Also, there's a growing body of evidence that children of younger age started using also digital technologies and connect through different social media, etc., using it not only for gaming, for entertainment, for education, but also for communication with adults and with children, and this becomes a major issue. The other message that I would like to share with you is that more and more children are using smartphones. So there's a new culture, bedroom culture of using smartphones for privacy, for private communication, with little supervision by adults. Therefore, this is also becoming an issue of concern for many parents, caregivers, and adults and teachers as well. When we look into the global statistics, it's quite interesting to see the different picture from region to region, from Africa to Asia Pacific to Europe. I will share, having in mind that Ukraine is based in Europe, I will share some statistics with you from European region to show what are the recent developments in terms of access to online information and access to digital technologies. According to European Union statistics, around 75% of children 6 to 17-year-old have access to internet. And when it comes to nowadays 15, 16 years old children, you can see that they started using internet when they were 11 years old, whereas children from 9 to 10 years old started using it when they were 7, which means that access to internet is becoming younger and younger, and more children of younger age, even starting from preschool age, are using internet as a source of information, and this is a very important issue. Then there's also statistics about use of mobile phones and different devices for even access to education during the quarantine, which again makes us wonder whether they are used for benefit of children or for harm, or they can bring to harm to children. Also, what is important that we as adults think of access to online environments or digital technologies in terms of opportunities for education, opportunities for learning, opportunities for development of new skills in children and youth, in adolescents. And when we look into the global job market, we can see that children and youth who have more access to internet and to digital technologies, they have more opportunities in this life to find interesting jobs. And the current lockdown, including in Ukraine, shows also those young people that have skills to work online had better opportunities for job and for future, and they were better connected to their peers, to the society, versus those that have limited access. But also it's important to understand that access and connectivity can be also a challenge for the most vulnerable who do not have this equal access to connection. And this can be true about those living in eastern Ukraine, in the contact line where there's limited access to internet, limited access to different devices that can help them to have distance education. But also this is true about children with disabilities, children living in institutions, etc. This is why, again, connectivity can be used for benefit of children and can harm children, because when children with different skills and different capacities to navigate in online environment come to real life, they have different skills and opportunities in their future. This is why it's really important to make sure that also digital technologies are accessible on an equal basis for the most vulnerable and for the wealthy part of population. And the use of digital technologies also can deepen the economic gap as well, linking to what I said regarding the capacities, skills of young people that have access to digital technologies. The other group that could be quite vulnerable in terms of access or have limited access to digital technologies could be children of ethnic minority groups, because if they do not know the language, how to navigate, how to look for information in digital world, then they will be in a situation when they cannot have the same source of information, they cannot have the same access to education, which will deepen the gap between them and the rest of the children living in the society. When it comes to dangers, nowadays also on top of regular or common risks, we can see more risks connected to online protection issues, such as bullying, online violence, abuse, exploitation, engagement of children in child pornography, etc., etc. I mean, those are really critical issues that we have to address. And the risks for these bring to understanding that one has to balance access of children and then protection of children online. And one has really to make sure that children have clear link between offline and online, making sure that they use the offline opportunities to communicate with their peers. They have access to playground. They have access to school, physical access to school, and not just be stuck in online environment without having understanding what is the real life outside the internet, outside the digital technology. This is really an important issue. When it comes to dangers related to sexual abuse and oral abuse, it's important to understand that the risks are higher, but they are almost the same, because the perpetrators are using online environment to have easy access to children. So the venues are changed, but the types of abuse are almost the same when it comes to types of abuse that were before that. So it's really critical to be careful as adults not to overuse or make sure that we overprotect children, banning access to online environment, because as I already mentioned, online is an opportunity for them to develop, to learn, to explore, and to gain new skills. So when we talk about harms of life online, one has to think of three forms of risk. One is related to the content. What is the content of online that children are using? Second is related to the contact, to whom they are contacting using online environment, and what is the way of communication in terms of contacts. And then, of course, the conduct, because there should be clear rules about code of conduct in internet environment, using internet and using the online environment, and it should be clear for children and for adults, and there should be clear messages to all children of all groups. And when it comes to harms of online, definitely the most common type of online abuse maybe used in Ukraine is cyberbullying, of course, and then of course we have cases of sexual abuse and exploitation. Talking about the risks, today children spend more time spending than before online, possibly unsupervised. While this has allowed them to continue their education studies and stay in touch with their peers, there are also signs of increased risk of children coming into contact with online perpetrators. The most common risks today in Ukraine might be considered cyberbullying, online child sexual abuse, and exploitation. Therefore, it is really important, it's an imperative for us adults to understand which children are the most vulnerable to those risks, and what do adults think about this? What do they think about online risks and harms, and whether they understand the risks they can face? This will help us preventing the harm in the digital age. It will help us to point the way forward and to protect children's privacy online. Having said this, I would like also to mention that there are ways to build a protective environment and to link the online-offline so that we create a better world for children where they can learn using the digital technologies, but also they can be prevented from possible harm. For that, I will just mention a few actions. Those are just a few ones. Of course, the list should be much bigger. And the first one is, of course, empowering children and enhancing their resilience to harm. Digital literacy helps children to understand how to navigate in the system, but also it will help children to understand what possible risks they can face in the system. The other important element should be the national effective legislation. We know that there are certain attempts in Ukraine to make to elaborate a national strategy on online protection of children, and this should be part of the overall strategy how to prevent and address child abuse and neglect neglect in the country. Of course, there should be actions taken to remove the impunity for abusers, including criminalization of sexual activities with children, introducing effective sanctions, penalties, sentencing, etc., reducing availability and access to harm through filters, through parental control softwares, but one has to do it really carefully to keep the balance, to make sure that children have their privacy and we don't violate their rights, but also we help them to be protected through different filters. What will help also is really building better communication, strengthening communication, and building better bridge between children and their parents so that they can trust each other and they consider source of information coming from parents as a reliable source of information that could be respected, could be considered. Then cooperation across law enforcement agencies and multidisciplinary cooperation to make sure that children are really protected in the online environment. But also promoting recovery, rehabilitation for those children who are subjected to or exposed to harm through online environment. So, to end up my presentation, I would like to share with you the findings of UNICEF Ukraine's study on online protection issues related to children, starting from bullying and how do children see the benefits of online environment and how do they protect themselves from this. And having said this, I just want to remind that we all know that internet will continue to be an important part of life of children, and the role of every single state is really to make sure that children are better protected in this environment and that states take certain actions to ensure that this is a priority for every single state institution and for every single parent living in the country.